There was a time when I believed Vanessa and I had the perfect marriage. I was a hard-working man, dedicated to building a future for us, and she was my beautiful, vibrant wife. Always social, always dressed in the finest clothes, always turning heads when we walked into a room together. I never minded that she had expensive tastes. She had grown up in wealth, and I had always been proud that I could provide for her, give her the life she was accustomed to. But looking back now, I realize I had been blind. For years, I dismissed the signs. The late nights she claimed were spent catching up with friends, the whispered phone calls she brushed off as work, the designer bags and jewelry that showed up in our home without a clear explanation. I should have questioned it sooner. I should have known that love alone wasn't enough to keep someone loyal. The first real crack in our illusion of a perfect life came when Vanessa announced she was going on a girls' trip to Paris. She had always loved to travel, and while the suddenness of the trip caught me off guard, I didn't think much of it at first. But as she packed, something felt off. "You just planned this out of nowhere?" I asked, watching as she folded silk dresses into a designer suitcase. Vanessa smiled, that dazzling, practiced smile that had always made me melt. "You know how it is, babe. Claire and the girls just decided to go last minute. You wouldn't want me to miss out, would you?" I forced a chuckle, shaking my head. "No, of course not." She walked over and kissed me on the cheek, lingering just long enough to make me forget the nagging feeling in my gut. "I'll call you every night," she promised, running her fingers down my arm. "You trust me, don't you?" I did. Or at least, I wanted to. That night, as she packed her things, I couldn't shake the unease creeping up my spine. It wasn't like I had never spoiled her before. Hell, I had always been the one swiping my card to fund our luxurious vacations, our weekend getaways. But something about this trip didn't sit right with me. I told myself I was overthinking it, that Vanessa was simply enjoying the life I worked so hard to provide. But deep down, a whisper of doubt had already taken root. And soon, that whisper would turn into undeniable proof. I tried to push the doubts away, told myself I was being paranoid. Vanessa had always been a social woman, had always surrounded herself with luxury. This wasn't new. It wasn't strange. But the feeling in my gut refused to settle. It lingered, creeping into my thoughts at the most unexpected moments, making me question the very foundation of the trust one had built my marriage on. Then, the notification came. It was late afternoon, and I was in my office finishing up work when my phone buzzed. At first, I barely glanced at it, expecting some automated alert or a reminder. But the moment I saw the message, my entire world shifted. "Bank alert. A first-class flight ticket has been purchased under your name." My stomach tightened. I hadn't booked any flights. I hadn't even planned a trip. My fingers hovered over my phone, my pulse hammering in my ears as I tapped into my banking app. There it was, plain as day, a first-class ticket to Paris. For a moment, I thought it might be a mistake. Maybe Vanessa had simply booked the ticket under my name for her trip, thinking it would be easier. But something told me that wasn't the case. Something told me I wasn't supposed to see this. I clicked deeper into the transaction history, my heart pounding, and that's when I saw it. More charges, all leading back to the same thing. Luxury hotels, designer boutiques, Michelin-starred restaurants, all booked under my account, all lining up perfectly with the dates Vanessa would be in Paris. And all of them made one thing very, very clear. Vanessa wasn't going on a girls' trip. She was going on a romantic getaway with someone else. The realization was like a fist to the gut. I had been played, used, tricked into funding another man's fantasy, all while Vanessa smiled in my face, kissed me goodbye, and promised she'd call me every night. I gripped the edge of my desk, my breathing sharp and uneven. A part of me wanted to call her, to demand answers, to make her admit what she had done. But I forced myself to take a breath. Not yet. If I confronted her now, she would lie. Twist the truth. She would have an excuse, a story, some explanation carefully crafted to keep me doubting myself. And I wouldn't give her that chance. I needed to be sure. I pulled up the flight details, scanning through them quickly. She wasn't flying alone. There were 2 first-class tickets. And when I checked the additional passenger, I saw the name that confirmed everything. Derek. I didn't know much about him, just a name Vanessa had mentioned once or twice in passing. A friend, she had called him. A business acquaintance, someone she had met at an event. Nothing important. Nothing I should be worried about. Except now, he was flying first class to Paris with my wife. Spending my money. Sleeping in the hotels I had unknowingly paid for. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. She thought she was untouchable. She thought I would never notice, that she could live her double life without consequence. But she was wrong. So very, very wrong. I leaned back in my chair, inhaling deeply through my nose. My initial reaction was rage, blinding, seething rage that made my hands shake. But as I sat there, processing everything, the anger started to shift. I had a choice to make. I could call her. I could yell, demand answers, let her hear the betrayal in my voice. But what would that accomplish? She would cry, make excuses, try to manipulate me into believing it wasn't what it looked like. Or I could play the long game. Let her dig her own grave. And then, when the moment was right, I would take everything away. A slow, cold satisfaction settled in my chest. I clicked out of the banking app and opened my laptop. If Vanessa wanted to lie, cheat, and use me, then fine. But she had made one fatal mistake. She underestimated me, and she was about to learn just how big of a mistake that was. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen, the evidence of Vanessa's betrayal glaring back at me like a neon sign. The transactions, the flights, the hotel bookings, it was all there. Cold, undeniable proof that my wife had been lying to me. And yet, instead of feeling shattered, instead of crumbling under the weight of what I had just discovered, something inside me shifted. This wasn't going to break me. No, this was going to destroy her. I wasn't the type to act on impulse. That was Vanessa's specialty, living in the moment, spending recklessly, doing whatever she wanted without a second thought. But me? I was different. I calculated. I planned. And if she thought I was going to be the pathetic husband begging for an explanation, she had another thing coming. I clicked through the transactions again, taking my time, making note of every single detail, every date, every charge, every piece of evidence I needed to ensure she wouldn't walk away from this untouched. She had played me like a fool. Now, it was my turn to play her. First, I checked her flight details. She was scheduled to leave in 2 days, flying first class to Paris with Derek, ready to indulge in whatever fantasy she had been spinning behind my back. She thought she was untouchable. She thought I would never notice, never question her, never catch her. She was wrong. I picked up my phone and called my bank. The moment the automated system answered, I pressed through to a live representative, keeping my voice steady, calm. When the woman on the other end picked up, I explained that there had been unauthorized charges on my account. Yes, that's correct, I said smoothly. I need to report fraudulent activity. The representative asked a few standard questions, and I provided all the details, my voice never once wavering. As far as they were concerned, I was just a husband who had noticed suspicious transactions. They didn't need to know the full story. Not yet. Within minutes, the process had begun. The cards were locked. The transactions flagged. The first-class flights? Canceled. The hotel bookings? Revoked. The shopping spree Vanessa had clearly been planning in her head? Gone. I leaned back in my chair, a slow smirk curling at the edges of my lips. Let's see how well she does without my money. But I wasn't done. Vanessa had spent years making me believe she was someone she wasn't. A loyal wife, a devoted partner, a woman who valued what we had built together. But now, the mask was off. And if she had been playing me this whole time, I wanted to see just how far she was willing to go. I needed more information, more proof. So, I made another call. This time, to the airline. Hi, I said, adopting a casual tone. My wife and I had a flight booked, but I need to make some changes. Can you confirm the reservation details for me? The woman on the line pulled up the information quickly. Yes, I see the reservation. 2 first-class seats to Paris. I forced out a chuckle, as if I had forgotten something simple. Right, and the other passenger? Derek Collins, she answered without hesitation. There it was. Hearing his name spoken aloud made it real. I took a slow breath, keeping my voice light. Great. Actually, I'd like to cancel both seats. Are you sure? She asked. Absolutely. She confirmed the cancellation, and when I ended the call, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Vanessa was going to land in Paris with nothing. No prepaid hotel, no luxury spending money, no first-class ticket back. She was about to get a front-row seat to her own downfall. Now all that was left was waiting. 2 days. That's all it would take. 2 days until Vanessa walked into the airport, feeling confident, feeling secure in her deception. 2 days until she handed over her ticket, only to be met with confusion and denial. 2 days until her perfect getaway turned into an absolute nightmare. I could almost picture the scene, the growing panic in her eyes as the reality of the situation settled in. The frantic calls to me, calls that I would ignore. The moment she realized she wasn't the one in control anymore. It was almost poetic. For 7 years, I had given her everything. My trust, my money, my loyalty, and she had repaid me with lies. Now, she was going to learn what it felt like to lose. I closed my laptop, drained the last of my whiskey, and sat back in my chair. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about taking back my life. And Vanessa was about to learn that I wasn't the fool she thought I was. 2 days passed slowly, each hour bringing me closer to the moment Vanessa's world would come crashing down. I went about my daily routine as if nothing had changed, maintaining the illusion that I was the same trusting husband she had always counted on. I didn't ask about her trip. I didn't question her excitement. I let her believe she had one. The morning of her departure, she was practically glowing, dressed in designer travel wear, her perfectly manicured nails tapping away at her phone as she booked last-minute appointments for spa treatments in Paris. She moved through our house with an air of confidence, humming to herself, oblivious to the storm waiting for her on the other side of the Atlantic. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping my coffee, watching her pack the last of her things. "Are you sure you don't mind?" she asked sweetly, flashing me that same charming smile she had used so many times before. I met her gaze, my expression unreadable. "Why would I mind?" She grinned, leaning down to kiss my cheek. "You're the best, babe. I promise I'll bring you back something special." I nodded, swallowing down the bitter taste in my mouth. She had no idea. By the time she left for the airport, I was already settled in, my phone nearby, waiting for the inevitable call. I knew exactly how this would play out. She'd breeze into the airport, flash her first-class ticket with a confident smile, expecting to be ushered onto the plane without issue. And then, reality would hit. The cancellation. The realization that her access to my money had been revoked. The slow, creeping horror as she tried to pay for a cab, her card declining again and again. The rising panic as she checked her banking app, only to see nothing. And finally, the moment she'd reach for her phone, dialing the only number she could think of. Mine. I didn't have to wait long. An hour after her flight was supposed to leave, my phone buzzed. I stared at the screen, letting it ring twice before answering. "David." Her voice was sharp, frantic. I leaned back in my chair, pretending not to know. "Hey, sweetheart, shouldn't you be on your flight?" There was a pause and then an explosion. "My flight was canceled," she shrieked, her voice laced with panic. "I don't understand. The airline says it was revoked. Did you do this?" I let a slow smile spread across my face. "There it is." "Vanessa," I said calmly, "why would I cancel your flight?" She was breathing hard, and I could picture her, standing in the middle of the airport, red-faced, her designer luggage beside her, completely and utterly stranded. "I don't know," she snapped, "but I need you to fix this. Call the airline, get them to rebook it. I don't care how, just do it." I made a thoughtful sound. "That might be a little difficult." "Difficult?" she repeated, her voice rising. "Why?" I took my time, let the silence stretch out. Then I dropped the hammer. "Well, for starters, your credit cards have all been frozen." The silence that followed was delicious. "What?" she finally whispered. I could hear the click, click, click of her nails against her phone, the sound of her frantically trying to open her banking app, and then her sharp inhale. "What the hell did you do?" she hissed. I swirled the last of my coffee in my cup, enjoying every second of this. Oh, you mean what I did after I found out you've been booking luxury hotels, expensive dinners, and a first-class ticket to Paris for you and Derek? She let out a strangled gasp. I know everything, Vanessa. My voice was ice-cold now, all amusement gone. I know about Paris. I know about Derek. I know about every last cent you've stolen from me to fund this little fantasy of yours. She was quiet, but I could hear her breathing. Shallow, desperate, cornered. You had your fun, I continued. And now, you get to see what it feels like when the rug is pulled out from under you. David, she started, her tone shifting, her voice softening. The manipulation was beginning. I cut her off. No, Vanessa, we're past that. You don't get to lie your way out of this. Please, she whispered, and for the first time in a long time, I heard real fear in her voice. I messed up. I wasn't thinking. But you can't just do this to me. I have nothing. I let out a sharp laugh. That's exactly the point. She made a choked sound, and I wondered if she was crying. I didn't care. Not anymore. What am I supposed to do? She finally asked, her voice small. I shrugged. Call Derek. I'm sure he'd be happy to pick up the tab. I could almost hear the shift in her expression, the realization sinking in. Derek, the man she had risked everything for, wasn't the type to stick around when things got tough. He had been enjoying the ride as long as I was the one paying for it. But now he'd see Vanessa for exactly what she was, a woman who had nothing. I let the silence drag, then spoke one final time. Enjoy Paris, sweetheart. And then, before she could say another word, I hung up. I let out a slow breath, staring at the phone in my hand. It was done. Vanessa was stranded, alone, exposed. And this was just the beginning, because when she came back, her nightmare would only get worse. The moment I hung up, I set my phone down, exhaling slowly as a sense of absolute control settled over me. For years, I had played the role of the devoted husband, the man who provided, the man who never questioned too much. Vanessa had relied on that. She had counted on my trust, my love, my willingness to always see the best in her. But she had mistaken kindness for weakness. And now, she was stranded in a foreign country, her perfect little fantasy crumbling around her. I imagined the scene at the airport, how she must have tried to pay for a cab, only to have her card decline. The way her heart must have pounded as she checked her bank balance, seeing nothing but locked accounts and blocked transactions. The moment she realized she had no backup plan, because I had always been the plan. I smirked, leaning back in my chair. This was only the beginning. I wasn't going to just leave her in Paris and be done with it. No, this wasn't about petty revenge. This was about consequences. Vanessa had spent our marriage treating me like a fool, spending my money on another man, lying to my face with ease. And now, she was going to experience what it meant to lose. My phone buzzed again, another call from her. I ignored it, watching as the notifications stacked up. Then, a text. Vanessa, David, please answer. I need you to fix this. I scoffed. Fix this? The sheer audacity. Another message. Vanessa, I know you're upset. I know you found out. But let's talk about this, please. I made a mistake. A mistake. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary, not using your husband's money to fund a trip with your side piece. Another call. I let it go to voicemail. She left a message this time, her voice a mixture of frustration and desperation. David, I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is going too far. I'm stranded here. I have no money, no way to book a hotel, no way to even eat right now. You can't just leave me like this. This is cruel. I get that you're angry, but come on. Just unlock my cards so I can at least get through the next few days, and we can figure everything out when I get back. Please. I chuckled darkly, shaking my head. She still didn't get it. This wasn't about making things right. This wasn't about finding a compromise. This was about making her face the reality she had been so desperate to avoid. I deleted the voicemail without listening to the rest. Hours passed. The call slowed but didn't stop entirely. I could imagine her sitting there in some cheap airport cafe, using the last of her cash to buy a coffee, staring at her phone, waiting for me to respond, waiting for a lifeline that wasn't coming. At some point, Derek had to realize what was happening. He had been riding high on Vanessa's spending, enjoying the luxury that he assumed was hers. But now, he'd see that she was nothing without me. I imagined their conversation. What do you mean you can't pay for anything? I don't know what happened, Derek. My cards aren't working. You told me this trip was covered, that we wouldn't have to worry about anything. I thought it was. I don't know what to do. And then the inevitable. Well, I'm not paying for this. This isn't my problem. Vanessa had spent years carefully crafting an image. She was the woman with everything, the one who never worried about money because she always had me to fall back on. But now, with nothing left, no cards, no funds, no safety net, Derek would see her for exactly what she was. And I knew exactly how men like him operated. He wasn't going to stick around. She had thrown everything away for this affair, had risked our marriage, our life together, for this man. And in the end, she would lose him too. And that was going to be the moment it really sank in. The betrayal wasn't mine. It was hers. I sat back, letting the silence settle around me, knowing that every passing second, Vanessa's panic was growing. I could have ended it there. Could have let her figure it out on her own. Could have left her stranded for good. But no, I wanted to see what she would do next. I wanted to watch her fall. So I waited. And when the next call came, I finally picked up. David, she breathed, as if relieved. I let the silence stretch. Yes, Vanessa? Oh my God. Thank you for answering, she rushed out. Listen, I know you're upset. I get it. But please, just unlock my card so I can at least— No, I said simply. She stammered. What? I leaned back in my chair, my voice calm, controlled. You heard me. No. David, you can't just— I can, I interrupted, my tone sharp now. And I have. You're on your own, Vanessa. Whatever happens now, it's on you. She sucked in a shaky breath. I don't know what to do. I smiled. That was the first honest thing she had said to me in a long time. Then figure it out, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. And then I ended the call. Because this was only the beginning. I set my phone down and exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of my decision settle in. There was no turning back now. I had given Vanessa every chance to be honest, every opportunity to choose loyalty, and she had thrown it all away for a fleeting fantasy. Now, she was stranded in Paris, completely at my mercy, and the only thing she could do was sit in the mess she created. I imagined her sitting in that airport, pacing, frantically trying to reach me again. Maybe she was still clinging to the hope that I would change my mind, that I would cave and save her from her own betrayal. But she had no idea that my patience had run out long before she ever stepped on that plane. She had spent years underestimating me, assuming I would always forgive, always overlook, always be the man who picked up the pieces. She was wrong. A few hours passed before my phone buzzed again. Another call from her. This time, I let it ring out. A voicemail followed, and though I had no intention of answering, I pressed play, curious to hear just how desperate she had become. David, please, just talk to me. Her voice was shaky, on the verge of breaking. I don't know what to do. Derek, he's pissed. He's saying this isn't his problem, that I should have had a backup plan. I swear, I didn't think this would happen. Please, just help me. I'll come home. We'll talk. I'll fix this. Just don't do this to me. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. Do this to her? She still didn't get it. She had done this to herself. I deleted the voicemail without responding. I knew what was coming next. Derek, the man she had risked everything for, was starting to show his true colors. Of course, he had been happy to enjoy the luxury, the expensive dinners, the first-class treatment, as long as someone else was paying for it. But now that she was broke, stranded, with no means to cover the costs, he was already looking for an exit. Vanessa had spent years carefully crafting her life, surrounding herself with wealth, status, and the illusion of power. But she had never built anything of her own. Everything she had, every single thing she thought made her untouchable, was because of me. And now that I had cut her off, she had nothing. I sat back, sipping my coffee, letting the satisfaction settle in. She had wanted a life without me. Now, she had it. And something told me she wouldn't like how it felt. I woke up the next morning feeling refreshed, a sensation I hadn't experienced in a long time. The weight I had been carrying for years, the silent burden of doubt, suspicion, and betrayal, was finally gone. Vanessa's problems were no longer my problems. Her mistakes, her selfish choices, her reckless spending, all of it was catching up to her now, and for once, I wasn't the one cleaning up the mess. I took my time getting ready, enjoying a quiet morning without the usual distraction of her texts or calls. But as I checked my phone, I saw them stacked up, one after another. Missed calls, desperate messages, voice notes that I had no intention of listening to. She was spiraling, and I had no sympathy left to give. I scrolled past her name, but one message caught my attention. Not from her, but from Derek. Derek, hey man, I don't know what's going on, but Vanessa is losing it. She's saying you canceled everything? You blocked her cards? Look, I don't want to be in the middle of your marriage drama, but she's stranded, dude. Maybe at least sort that out? I laughed. Marriage drama? That was rich, coming from the guy who had been sleeping with my wife while using my money to fund their affair. Now he wanted to take the moral high ground? Now he was pretending to be a decent man? I didn't bother responding. Instead, I sat back and pictured how the last 12 hours must have played out. Vanessa, humiliated, realizing she had no way to pay for the fantasy she had built with Derek. Derek, standing there, realizing for the first time that he had attached himself to someone who had nothing of her own. The luxury he had been enjoying wasn't hers to give. It had always been mine. And now, he was starting to see the cracks. I imagined their argument. What do you mean you can't pay for anything? I don't know, Derek. I don't know what happened. He must have canceled my accounts. So what? You have nothing saved? No backup? I thought I did. I don't know, okay? Derek was probably furious. Not because he cared about Vanessa, but because he had just realized he was on his own. No more first-class flights. No more luxury hotels. No more free ride. Men like him didn't stick around when things got tough. And Vanessa? She had built her entire life on the assumption that someone, me, Derek, anyone, would always be there to catch her when she fell. But this time, no one was coming to save her. I took a slow sip of my coffee, a smirk pulling at my lips. She was finally learning what it meant to lose. I spent the rest of the day as if nothing had happened. I went to work, answered emails, attended meetings, and carried on like a man who wasn't in the middle of watching his wife's carefully crafted life collapse in real time. It was almost amusing, the contrast between my calm, measured day and the absolute chaos Vanessa must have been drowning in. When I finally checked my phone, there were more messages waiting. Not just from Vanessa, but from mutual acquaintances, friends who had clearly heard the whispers of what was happening. Claire, hey, are you and Vanessa okay? She's been posting some weird stuff on Instagram. Something about being stranded? Mark, man, I don't know what's going on, but I saw Vanessa's story. She's freaking out. Let me know if you need anything. Vanessa was trying to control the narrative. That much was clear. She had spent years curating the perfect image, the wealthy, glamorous wife with the perfect life. The idea that people were seeing her unravel, seeing her desperate and stranded, must have been humiliating for her. And the fact that it was all her fault? That must have been even worse. I scrolled through social media and found exactly what I expected. Vanessa's Instagram stories, a string of frantic, passive-aggressive posts that were clearly aimed at me. Sometimes, the people you trust the most betray you the worst. Being stranded in a foreign country is something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Some people just don't have hearts. Karma always comes back around. I smirked. Karma? That was rich, coming from someone who had spent my money on another man, who had used my name to book first-class tickets and five-star hotels while whispering lies in my ear. She was trying to paint herself as the victim, twisting the story so that anyone watching from the outside would see her suffering instead of the truth. But the truth had a way of surfacing. I ignored the messages from our friends and instead called my lawyer. David, he greeted me, his voice calm and professional. Are we moving forward? Yes, I said without hesitation. File the divorce papers. I want everything in order before she gets back. Understood. Do you want to serve her while she's still in Paris, or wait until she returns? I considered that for a moment. There was a certain satisfaction in the idea of her opening an envelope in some rundown airport hotel, realizing that not only had I cut her off financially, but I had also already taken legal steps to erase her from my life. But no, I wanted to see her face when she read those papers. I wanted her to feel it. Wait until she gets back, I said finally. Let her think she still has a chance. Then serve her the moment she steps foot in the house. The lawyer chuckled. Cold. I like it. I'll have everything ready. I hung up, feeling a sense of finality wash over me. Vanessa was about to walk into a world she didn't recognize, a world where I wasn't there to fix things for her. She had spent years making decisions without consequences. That era was over. And when she finally came crawling back, looking for sympathy, looking for any way to undo what she had done, she would find nothing but the consequences she had spent so long avoiding. The flight details were sent to my email. Vanessa had booked her return ticket, and in less than 24 hours, she'd be walking through our front door, expecting, what? Sympathy? Understanding? A second chance? She was about to get none of those. For the first time since this entire ordeal began, I felt completely at peace. I had spent years making excuses for her, giving her the benefit of the doubt, believing that maybe, just maybe, I was overthinking things. But there was no denying it now. She had made her choice. She had risked our marriage, our future, for a fantasy built on stolen money and empty promises. And now, she had nothing. I went about my day as usual, preparing everything for when she arrived. The divorce papers were sitting on my desk, waiting for the moment she walked in. I had already spoken to my lawyer, ensuring that every financial tie between us would be severed. I wasn't going to let her walk away with anything she didn't deserve. The house was quiet, peaceful in a way it hadn't been in a long time. No fake apologies, no manipulative sweet talk, no guilt trips disguised as affection. Just silence. And I liked it. Then, just after noon, my phone rang. I knew it was her before I even looked at the screen. I let it ring out. A voicemail followed, and after a long moment, I hit play. David, I'm at the airport. My flight lands tomorrow morning. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But please, can we just talk? I swear, if you give me a chance, I'll explain everything. I love you. I closed my eyes, shaking my head. She still thought she could talk her way out of this. She still thought that after everything, I would listen, forgive, let her back in. Not this time. I deleted the message without another thought. Tomorrow, when she walked through that door, she wouldn't find the man who had once loved her unconditionally. She would find the man she had created, the man who had finally stopped caring. And when I handed her those divorce papers, she would finally understand just how much she had lost. The morning of Vanessa's return was like any other, except this time, I wasn't the same man she had left behind. The moment I woke up, I felt an eerie sense of calm settle over me, a quiet finality that I had been waiting for. Today, she would walk through that door, expecting to spin whatever lie she had crafted, expecting me to listen, to react, to care. But I didn't. I made coffee like I always did, read the news, and watched the minutes tick by, each one bringing me closer to the moment she would realize everything was over. The divorce papers sat on the coffee table, neatly stacked, waiting for her signature. No second chances. No negotiations. Just an end to the deception. Then, just past noon, I heard the car pull into the driveway. I didn't move. I just waited. The front door opened, and then, there she was. Vanessa stood in the doorway, her once perfect appearance now slightly unraveled. Her hair wasn't styled like it usually was. Her clothes weren't as effortlessly put together. There was exhaustion in her eyes, but it wasn't from travel. It was from desperation. She looked at me, her lips parting as if she expected me to say something, to rush to her, to hold her, to tell her it was all a mistake. I didn't. Instead, I picked up the stack of papers from the table and held them out. Her eyes flickered to them, and for a moment, she just stood there, frozen, her breath catching in her throat. David, she finally whispered, her voice trembling. Please, can we just talk first? I didn't move. We're past talking, Vanessa. Sign the papers. Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, no flicker of hesitation. She had made her choice. David, She swallowed hard, shaking her head. I messed up. I know that. But I love you and I didn't mean to hurt you. We can fix this. We can start over. I let out a slow breath, staring at her like I was seeing a stranger. You didn't just hurt me, Vanessa. You destroyed everything. And you want to fix it? With what? More lies. Her hands trembled as she reached for me, but I stepped back. David, please, she begged, tears slipping down her face now. I don't have anyone else. And there it was. The truth. She wasn't here because she loved me. She wasn't here because she regretted what she had done. She was here because she had nowhere else to go. She had lost Derek. She had lost the life she thought she was going to have. And now, she was standing in the ruins of the one she had destroyed, realizing too late that there was no way back. I placed the pin on the table, my voice cold. Sign the papers, Vanessa, and then leave. She let out a strangled sob, staring at me as if she couldn't believe this was real. But it was. I watched as she slowly sat down, picked up the pin, and with shaking hands, signed away the life she had so easily thrown away. And as she did, I felt something shift inside me. I was free. The moment Vanessa signed her name on the last page, it was over. There was no going back, no more empty words, no more manipulations. The finality of it was written all over her face as she set the pen down, her fingers trembling slightly. I didn't say anything. I just picked up the papers, scanned over them to ensure she hadn't left any signature boxes empty, and then I stacked them neatly before placing them back on the table. Vanessa didn't move. She just sat there, staring at the papers like they held the last remnants of the life she had thrown away. She had always been good at pretending, at making herself the victim in every situation. But there was no one left to blame now. No one but herself. I leaned back in my chair, studying her. The woman sitting in front of me wasn't the same Vanessa I had once loved. Or maybe she was, and I had just been too blind to see her for who she really was. She had spent years building an illusion, crafting a perfect image of the devoted wife while she siphoned off my trust, my money, my faith in her. She had been planning her escape with Derek, convinced she had me fooled. But now, Derek was gone. The dream she had built around him had shattered the moment my money stopped flowing. He had left her stranded in a foreign country, abandoned her the second she became a liability. And now, with nothing left, she was here, hoping I would be the man I used to be, the one who always fixed everything. But I wasn't that man anymore. Vanessa sniffled, wiping at her eyes with shaking hands. David, I don't know what to do. I exhaled slowly, letting the silence stretch between us. That's not my problem anymore. Her lip quivered. I have nowhere to go. I didn't respond. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was asking for a safety net, the same way she had always done. But I wasn't her safety net anymore. Please, she whispered, her voice breaking. I know I hurt you. I know I messed up. But we had something, didn't we? Can't we try to fix this? I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. Vanessa, you weren't trying to fix anything when you were booking first-class flights with Derek. You weren't trying to fix anything when you used my money to pay for a life you were never planning to include me in. And you damn sure weren't trying to fix anything when you were sleeping with another man while I was here, trusting you. She flinched like I had struck her, but I didn't care. She needed to hear it. David, I held up a hand. Stop. She did. I stood up, grabbing the divorce papers. I'll have these filed today. I suggest you start figuring out your next move. Her breath hitched. She swallowed. Can I at least stay here for a while? Just until no. My voice was firm, final. Her eyes darted around the room, like she was searching for something, some way to change my mind. But there was nothing left. Nothing she could say. Nothing she could do. You should go, I said quietly. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but I felt nothing. For years, I had been the man who always forgave, always compromised, always believed in her. And she had taken advantage of that trust, used it until there was nothing left to take. Now, she was the one left with nothing. She stood slowly, hesitation in every movement. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, but then she closed it again. Maybe, for the first time, she understood that some things can't be undone. She picked up her bag, the same designer bag she had packed for Paris, the one she had intended to bring back filled with luxury goods. Now, it was the only thing she had left. Without another word, she walked to the door. She hesitated for only a second, glancing back at me one last time. But I didn't react. I just stood there, watching, waiting. And then, finally, she walked out. The door clicked shut behind her, and for the first time in years, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. It was done. Vanessa was gone, and I was free.